What's up guys, welcome back to the channel, and with pre-patch coming soon and us moving forward into TBC, it finally opens up a couple new things, a new playstyle for rogues, and that really is mainly actually gonna be the Mutilate playstyle. And I know a lot of people wanted to play Seal of Fate, and I made a guide on how well Seal of Fate performed back in Classic, but now they're gonna wanna see how well Mutilate will perform and if they can play it, especially in this pre-patch iteration, if they can go for some crazy pre-patch parses or do a lot of boss damage, anything like that. So today, I'm gonna break down everything you need to know about the Mutilate spec in the iteration of a pre-patch while you're level 60, and also how it's going to perform against basically any of the other specs at level 60. With that being said, guys, of course, if you like this sort of content, if you want me to cover a couple more things on pre-patch and pre-patch specs, what is going to be best and everything in between, just make sure to like and subscribe and hit me with a comment if you want me to cover anything for TBC. Let's dive right in. Okay, so first of all, what is Mutilate? Mutilate is a new talent that we get. It's actually at the bottom of the assassination tree, and it basically hits the target with both of your daggers. So both your main hand and offhand need to be daggers, and you actually get a little bit of an advantage here if you have a slower offhand, because a slower offhand will just hit harder, right? Luckily, I have King's Fall and Death Sting, and a lot of people do, but a lot of people don't. But the BiS offhands, or the BiS weapons right now for daggers, are King's Fall and Death Sting. They're both pretty slow, 1.8 weapon speed, so that means their top end is pretty solid. Mutilate does cost 60 energy, and also it will award you 2 combo points. If you crit because you are actually going to be Seal Fate now, you're going to get yourself another combo point. And then the next thing to know about the talent tree here is the next thing you get that's new is Find Weakness, and this is kind of a buff on yourself after you use any of your finishing moves. After you use any finishing moves, you have an increase of your damage to all of your offensive abilities by 10%. So for 10 seconds, you have another buff. Here, let me just show you what it looks like really fast. Actually, I don't even have to target it because I have combo points. As I use Slice and Dice, for 10 seconds, I have Find Weakness here, and it will give me that 10% extra damage to my abilities. Moving on from there, let's dive into what spec you're going to be running as Mutilate in the pre-patch. So while you're still level 60 and running through Nax and stuff like that, you're mostly focused in the assassination tree, of course, because that's where Mutilate is, all the way at the bottom. You're going to be running 5 points into Malice, 3 into Punctured Wounds. You're not grabbing Murder. If you are level 70 and running Mutilate spec, you will grab Murder usually, and this is because in Naxxramas, you don't go against humanoids, giants, beasts, or dragonkins. It's mostly undead. So instead, I actually picked up Improved Expose Armor. And this is something that you get to like kind of choose between. You can go with Improved Poisons or Improved Eviscerate. You're almost never, ever gonna Eviscerate. Improved Poisons would be the biggest DPS gain for single target. But if you're running Mutilate, you might be the Exposed Armor rogue, which would be unfortunate. And we're not going to actually talk about that as it pertains to DPS today. Just know if you are all the way into the assassination tree, you might have to be running Exposed Armor. Moving down, you get Cold Blood and Quick Recovery, which gives you, basically you spend very little energy if you miss a finishing move. Seal Fate gives you that combo point back. Vigor just gives you 10 extra energy. Find Weakness, like I mentioned, and then Mutilate. Moving into the combat tree, here's something that actually was something I was debating and then had to go to the Sims to figure out what actually was better. Was actually, obviously you get Slice and Dice or Sinister Strike, and this is just because you're going to be Sinister Striking when you can't get behind a target. I forgot to mention that Mutilate is only when you are behind a target, basically like Backstab. You will use some Sinister Strikes, then you can either go into Gouge or Lightning Reflexes, personal preference, and you're going to go 5 points into Precision. Now, at level 60, you could actually go into 2 points into Precision and 3 points into Slice and Dice. This is a 1 DPS loss. It is so close, and it basically the only thing that it changes, because Slice and Dice moves over to the combat tree, in Mutilate spec is how often you have to Slice and Dice. So you have basically 45% less duration on all of your Slice and Dices, but it's fine because you have that 3% extra hit, which is actually pretty large because you don't have extra expertise from being in combat spec. So this hit percentage actually helps you quite a bit. Then again, this does change up the playstyle slightly, just meaning you have to slice and dice more often, and sometimes you'll have to hold energy. So then as we run this spec, what is the ideal rotation? What is our rotation? How are we actually building combo points, and so on and so forth? So first of all, the opener you would ideally start with is going to be Garrote. Now you can actually use bleeds and poisons and stuff on targets because of debuff limit going up, and you're not really going to push things off. So you're going to open with Garrote, you're going to have deadly poison in your offhand, and at level 70 you're actually going to use Shiv every now and then to make sure deadly poison never falls, but we don't have Shiv yet. In your main hand you either have Wind Fury Totem or instant poison. Then your Garrote opener and your combo point builder is always going to be Mutilate. So Mutilate is your builder here, and then your favorite finisher is always going to be Slice and Dice. Slice and Dice does the most for you. Basically, most of your damage is still from auto attacks, so Slice and Dice does the most for you. And then your combo point finisher, as you're actually DPSing, is going to be Rupture now, guys. We're not using Eviscerate anymore unless it's a very short fight. You are going with Rupture. The idea is to try to keep Slice and Dice up as much as you can, and then always 5-point Rupture. So this means you're actually usually doing a 1 to 4-point Slice and Dice, depending on basically the uptime of Slice and Dice, if you can keep it up. Sometimes you're gonna actually hold energy because you don't have that improved Slice and Dice talent, that you hold energy a little bit until Slice and Dice is gonna fall, then renew at like a 1-point or at a 2-point, and then go for the 5-point Rupture. Sometimes, again, also, you will lose combo points going from 4 combo points into 5 combo points for the Rupture. And this is actually, from all research, suggested. Always go with the 5-point Rupture. And then I actually ran a few tests myself, and I actually did about 40 more DPS, no buffs, about 40 more DPS, always making sure I went with a 5-point Rupture. You do lose some of your uptime on Slice and Dice, and so it is very close, but you do always want to go with the 5-point Rupture if you can. If a boss is about to die, of course, you can Eviscerate, but basically what the rotation is get a Rupture up, get your Slice and Dice rolling. Your builder is always going to be Mutilate, and you want between 1 and 4 points. If we had extended Slice and Dice, you would do 2 and 4 points Slice and Dices, and then you are doing 5-point Ruptures. 5-point Ruptures. Now, if you did randomly have extra energy, you could go in for some Eviscerates. It's very rare to happen. Pretty much it's only going to happen if you're using your Thistle Tea. That's the only time you're really going to be able to do it in a normal rotation. So be aware of that. And then one random thing that I guess isn't a big deal, but the 8-piece from Bone Scythe, Reveal Flaw, it giving you 100% crit on your next ability, basically Backstab, Cinder Strike, or Hemorrhage. It doesn't apply to Mutilate. I don't know if that's a bug or just something that's always been that way, but at least on the beta right now, it doesn't apply to Mutilate, so just don't expect it to give you any extra DPS boost, although those pieces are obviously pretty amazing. Now there's 2 other things you kind of want to pay attention to with the Mutilate build. Those are, of course, if you can try to keep up Find Weakness as often as you can, because this will obviously give you 10% more damage to your abilities. And then also you are going to have Cold Blood, which is a 3-minute CD giving you a 100% chance to crit. Cold Blood you're pretty much going to use off of CD on Mutilate, because most of your combo point finishers are not like a huge finisher, right? You're not using Eviscerate unless you are just for the sake of having Thistle Tea. And if that is the case, then you can Cold Blood on the Eviscerate. But Cold Blooding and Mutilate, having both of those weapons crit is huge. So you're almost always, pretty much always, using Cold Blood on on Mutilate and pretty much on CD. It also will make sure that you get 3 combo points there. There are times where you can actually kind of be strategic and you make sure that you want 3 combo points. Like if you had 2 and then wanted 5 for a big rupture and you want to make sure that you get the crit, that's generally a good idea or a good time to use Cold Blood, but pretty much on CD. It's a 3-minute CD though. You're most likely only gonna have one of these per boss fight. Okay, so how does Mutilate compare in the pre-patch versus, let's say, Combat Daggers or Combat Swords? Now, Combat Daggers gets kind of a little bit of a nerf in the pre-patch actually, because you're no longer going to be able to get points into lethality. You're also no longer going to be able to get points into opportunity. You're pretty much just going to be able to get points into punctured wounds and 2 points into ruthlessness. I can make a video covering that, the combat specs and what your BiS spec is for pre-patch later, but right now let's focus on Mutilate. So that's what you're missing out on, lethality and anything in opportunity, because you have to go further down into the tree to get surprise attacks and combat potency. Then if we look at the actual DPS numbers from Sims, and shout out to Simon. Simoniz's spreadsheet is already working. He's already working on one and keeping updating it for actual TBC. So if you guys want to check him out, I'll have his links in the description. Also, I guess the link to the sim in the description. So I actually ran the sim with assuming you're gonna get blessings also. So do know that I ran the sim assuming you're gonna get blessings. So you're gonna have paladins at level 60 within the first week or 2, most likely. People are gonna get boosted up pretty quickly. It's just gonna happen and we know it. So you're gonna have blessings. So on a 120-second fight, basically a 2-minute fight, you do about 1,588 DPS, 1,589 if I round up, being Mutilate spec. Now I've swapped over to Combat Daggers here, and you can see that I'm actually all the way up at 1,692 DPS. Over 100 more DPS just from being Combat Daggers. So this is a single target fight with basically everything the exact same, but changing up your spec. And it will raise your DPS by over 100. And then if you are using something like Gressel or even like Castigator, I ran it with Mace spec with Castigator and King's Fall, and even then you're actually doing more DPS. So if you are using something like Gressel, if you have Gressel in your main hand, even without having Hungering Cold, which by the way is amazing for everyone still, even if you don't have Hungering Cold, you are going to be doing almost 1,800 DPS. It actually came out to be 1,793. So almost 100 more DPS than you can do, actually 100 plus, because I didn't even run it with Hungering Cold. I did it with King's Fall in the offhand. So 100 plus more DPS above that. So that's 200 plus more DPS above Mutilate single target. So I guess to sum things up really is you can run Mutilate spec. This is how you do it. The unfortunate truth though, because I know a lot of us out there wanted to try something different, wanted to play a different playstyle in PvE. The unfortunate truth really is Mutilate spec is a significant DPS loss over running your normal combat specs, even with Combat Daggers taking the hit. And this is on single target. Don't even get me started on multi-target, because you literally don't have Blade Flurry anymore, and that is all of our cleave damage, right? So, unfortunately guys, Mutilate spec is not really viable in the pre-patch, but it is something you could run for fun. It is also something you could run as the exposed armor rogue. You're just gonna take a bit of a hit because one, you are building combo points very fast, so you should actually get exposed armor up crazy quickly, but you're losing out on all of your cleave damage from Blade Flurry. You're losing out on single target DPS because you're having to use exposed armor instead of rupture. And the only real upside is one, you've got Seal Fate for extra combo points, and Mutilate actually builds 2 to 3 combo points. So you can get exposed armor and have really good uptime, but your overall DPS, especially throughout the raid and in single target situations, is going to be gimped pretty hard. And with that being said, that's pretty much it. That sums up Mutilate spec. Hope that wasn't too long, and I hope it gives you an idea of what it's like to play Mutilate. Appreciate you guys a ton, and I will see you all on the next one.